Tomato garden tour time. Today is Saturday, July 11th, 2020, and we're going to do a tomato garden walkthrough. Now this is about 2/3 of what we've picked out of the garden this week. We've eaten a whole bunch of them. Today I'm going to have a little different format. I'm only going to show you the plants that I think that are most interesting of any given variety. You know, some of them I have 3 plants of the same variety or 2 plants. I'm going to only show you the most interesting of those, whether it's the best plants or the worst plants. Anyway, it's time for our tomato garden tour. I'm Gail, Gardening Gal, and welcome to my garden. Well, we're starting out in the side garden, and I'm going to have to talk about Vorlon. So he's the guy that is so tall, and those are 2 6-foot poles zip tied together. So he's getting close to the top of it. Now I went ahead and that tie that you see, that is as high as I could reach on a step stool. Now the thing about Vorlon is I'm not sure Vorlon is Vorlon. Let's take a closer look. I took a look at a bunch of the tomatoes from Vorlon online, a lot of pictures, and all of them showed like a pink fruit or even a purple fruit. I had 2 of these ripen this week and they were both red. Now the rest of the plant is about as expected. We have the potato leaf and the growth, so I don't know if this is a mutation of a Vorlon or I've got something entirely different. So that is definitely interesting when it comes to these plants. Okay, I'm making an exception to Vorlon. This is a cutting that I had taken from Vorlon, maybe a month or so ago. And I went ahead and planted it in some soil and just let it sit. So this is what I've got. I just planted them out here this past week. And so I'll have another Vorlon plant to see what's going on. Well, here we go with Girl's Weird Thing, which is right next to Vorlon. And if I back up, you can see that although these stakes are not as high as Vorlon's, Girl's Weird Thing is doing pretty darn good as far as height. I can't reach the top of it. Anyway, really not anything totally exciting about this one. We do have some plants, or some tomatoes rather, that I am looking forward to getting ripe. They don't appear to be anywhere near ripe. But that is it for today's Girl's Weird Thing. Now this guy is Dwarf Wild Fred. Let's take a look at the tomatoes on this guy. Let's see if I can get my hand in and show you how big they are. So they're not terribly big, but also remember that this is a dwarf tomato plant. Now as far as being dwarf, especially since I'm growing in a 5-gallon container, let's see. Yeah, now this is the top of a 3-foot pole, and you can see that he's done pretty good. So since technically this is about 2 feet above ground level, he's probably close to 3 feet now. So he's keeping on going, and we can see that there are more tomatoes forming. So this is Dwarf Wild Fred today. Now I did get some ripe fruit off of Blue Beauty this week, and I'll overlay a picture of the fruit that I got. But meanwhile, this is not the plant that I got the fruit from, but this is the smaller one. I think in the last video 2 weeks ago it was about this tall. And this is a 6-foot pole, so it's topped to the 6-foot pole pretty much, which is again about 5 feet above ground level. So yeah, it's doing pretty well, and I really enjoyed the beautiful tomatoes that I got off of Blue Beauty this week. Still in the side yard, and we've got Sleeping Lady, and you can see that I've got some very interesting malformed fruit. And then I've got what looks like a regular fruit off of Sleeping Lady. Not a whole lot interesting about this one. Now, it is a dwarf, and it's getting fairly tall. I'd say that it's probably about 2.5 feet. It is a determinate, so I don't know how much taller it's going to get. But this is one with chocolate tomatoes, so let's see what happens with Sleeping Lady. Rounding out the tomatoes in my side garden, this is new Big Dwarf. Again, a tomato. This one is a determinate as well. I had it in a different location in the side yard and I moved it over here. This one definitely needs staking because it's getting kind of heavy. No real blossoms or fruit on this one yet. I'm hopeful. Again, this is new Big Dwarf. This plant here is Brandywine red potato leaf. Now I planted this one in its container 2 weeks ago, so I think it was probably right after or right before the last video, and it's doing really well. This is a late planting because you know, I did it at the very tail end of June, but this means that I am going to have some tomatoes that are going to be starting later. So that's why I start some of these tomato plants later, so that by the time the others have kind of, you know, finished their fruiting, these are just starting. Now I'm in the backyard and what you see here is Aussie. Now remember I said it had some multiple crowns? Well, last week I went ahead and, if you can see here, I took out 2 of them, and in the 2 weeks the plant has gotten quite large. And what did it do again? It split into multiple crowns. Yay. So I'm going to have to do some more pruning again. But Aussie does have a tomato. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. So it has the first tomato on it, and that was from the biggest blossom. So we'll see what happens with Aussie. Now we're on to Alice's Dream, and this is the one in my backyard. And as you can see, I'm starting to get a ripe tomato. So let's see, the color is yellow. It's supposed to get more orangish with the purple shoulders. I've got that one starting to turn, and then right up here, I've got one that's just barely starting to turn color. So this is a pretty good sized plant. Now these purple poles are 2 4-footers tied together. So I don't know how much taller this one's going to get. But hey, you know, I've got 2 of these plants, so I'm not too terribly worried. But this one is Alice's Dream with those dreamy tomatoes. Okay, this one is Tennessee Yellow Cherry, and I don't know if you can tell, but the tops of those poles are actually taller than the eaves of the roof because I measured it. Yeah, so Tennessee Yellow Cherry is really, really, really getting big. I guess that's to be expected from a cherry tomato plant. They're usually a lot more productive and wild. I have gotten some fruit off of it this week. I found out that even though they look more or less ripe at the moment, you have to let them get to a golden color before they're fully sweet. Otherwise, they're a little on the tart side. So I'm just looking forward to having some more ripe ones off of this. It is a slow fruiter for a cherry tomato plant, so I'm not sure what's going on with it. But this is Tennessee Yellow Cherry, going for the sky. Now this one is Cherry Princess Sweet Surprise. It's one of my few hybrids in the garden. And it's grown quite tall. Now this pole is a 5-foot pole. Well, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. This is a 3-foot pole on top of a 4-foot pole. So I would say it's probably a good 6 feet above ground level. I'm not entirely impressed with this particular one. It's kind of shy fruiting. For a cherry tomato that's supposed to be really prolific. It has some, and it has another truss that's starting, but and some more up here. Could be the heat, I don't know, but we'll see something compared to its next door neighbor. I'm trying to get this so it's not as glary, but I don't think I'm going to have a lot of luck. Now this one is supposedly Rosey Falls, which is supposedly a basket style tomato. And this is a 4-foot pole, which is about 3 feet above soil level. So it's already to the top of that and shows no sign of stopping. I believe it is an indeterminate. And it has an interesting fruit structure. or blossom structure. Instead of just having one truss of fruit come out, there are 2 trusses for each section. I don't know that I've ever really seen that before. Usually you get like just 1 truss per section, but this one is developing 2. Now again, Rosey Falls is an open pollinated, so that means you can save the seeds and you'll get a plant like it, assuming it hasn't crossed. But I planted it the same day back here that I did its next door neighbor, which is Cherry Princess Sweet Surprise. And Rosey Falls is very clearly outdoing it as far as the fruit goes. Now here is my Earl's Faux plant that's in the backyard. And as you can see, the tomatoes on it are fairly good size. I think this is probably the biggest one, and it's just starting to turn. But take a look at this cluster. There are about 6 good-sized tomatoes in this particular cluster on this Earl's Faux plant. And that's not the only large cluster. I have another cluster that's right in here. There's another one a little bit further down. I've got more. They're developing up. So this one, I'm guessing that it's probably in a better position, more sunlight in this particular location. And if I go around, let me show you with the poles. Again, this is a 6-foot pole, and Earl's Faux out here has pretty much topped it, while the ones that are in the side yard are not quite that tall. So this is the interesting Earl's Faux for the week. Now here's my Stormin Norman. This one again is out in the backyard, and you can see the purple poles. I've got 2 of them zip tied together, and they are 4-foot poles each. So they're probably about 6.5 feet above soil level. Now I do have a bunch of ripe fruit on it, which I'll pick this afternoon. And by the way, picking your fruit in the afternoon or during the heat of the day is usually best as far as taste goes. But if you have a storm coming during the day and you have some ripe tomatoes, pick them before the storm, because when they get a lot of water, the fruit or the taste starts to dilute a little. But this is a pretty good plant. I have been picking a ton off this plant this week, and I've got a ton more that are coming. So Stormin Norman, the taste of it is a little on the smoky side, sweetish, smoky-ish, kind of hard to describe. It's good when they're fully ripe. When they're almost ripe, the taste is kind of but if you allow them to get fully ripe, like this one is probably about fully ripe, the taste is much, much better. So here's my unknown tomato. I'm going to show it to you. It may be the same as the dwarf Arctic rose, but since I'm not sure, I will go ahead and show it to you. It just keeps on growing and growing and growing. Dwarf Arctic rose is supposed to be a determinant, and this one keeps growing, so I don't know. But you can see that this is a pretty nice tomato cluster. I've picked several ripe tomatoes off of this one this week, and as you can see, there's still some more in there aside from the one that I showed you earlier, and more tomatoes. So this unknown tomato plant has sure been producing. Now this is the definite dwarf Arctic rose, and as you can see, I've been picking tomatoes off of it this weekend, or this week, that have been pink, so they're nice. This plant isn't quite doing as well as the other one. As you can see, this particular set of blossoms is just yeah, not good. I'm gonna have to cut that off the plant. And I've developed some purple spotting on the leaves. I'm not sure if that is a potassium issue or if it's something else, but I think once I've got the tomatoes off of this one, I think I'm just going to retire the plant. But this one is the one that I know for sure is dwarf Arctic rose. Well, sorry for going in between these particular posts, but this is the Jochalos that has been producing the fruit this week. So the other one in the side yard has not really been producing, but this one has. I'm still waiting to be impressed by this particular yellow fruit. I am going to let get riper because I don't know, the taste so far has been on the sour-ish side. So not really impressed with this plant. It's been falling over, so I finally just tied it to the post. But this is Jochalos. I don't think I'm going to be growing this one next year. Oh, this is poor little red robin. We have picked off most of the fruit. There are still a few that are getting ready to turn, but this is a determinate plant. It has just produced all kinds of fruit this week. I think I'm going to retire it with honors very soon. And red robin is the miniature that I will grow next week. So that's it for today's video. Got a question for you. Do you like this format better, where I just do one of each particular tomato variety, one plant? Or do you like it going through each plant each time? Let me know. Comment down below and tell me which one you like best. So anyway, this is Gail in my garden, and I will see you again in a couple more weeks with another tomato tour. Meanwhile, have yourself a great day and keep on gardening. Bye.